Unit 3, Exercise 1. What is said is never a mere repetition. Even if one agrees word for word with something that has been said before, everything, the world, the speaker, the circumstances, the addressee, and the meaning of what was said has changed. What one says is therefore in each case unique. Although most of our statements are unoriginal, they show through their particular, even unique style, which can be dull, ugly, or trivial, that someone has appropriated and therewith personalized them. Every sentence proves that the author has changed a received gift into a thought of her own. An analysis of what is one's own might then reveal much of what the speaker has borrowed from parents, guides, friends, books, fashions, etc., while at the same time disclosing how all these influences have converged into the unique results of what the author said. Exercise 2. Worry is often the recognition of incompleteness. In a world marred by uncertainty, doubt continuously swirling around you, a question rises to the surface of your awareness, and in that moment of recognition, you might choose to solve the mystery. You engage in worrying, hoping against hope that you'll finally nail down the unsolvable questions troubling your life. Uncertainty, or rather the impatience with uncertainty, is a common thread running through many aspects of worrying. The quest for a neat and satisfying resolution frequently drives this behavior. It's understandable. It's likely born out of a tireless commitment to do better, driven by a willingness to pursue the important things in your life. But worrying begins to deviate from the path. Despite your good intentions, you get trapped in thought rather than called to action. Exercise 3. In the early days of the commercial Internet, scholars discovered that in cyberspace, computer code operated as a kind of law. Not law as we know it, public rules decided by legislators and judges, but a different kind of law embedded in the tech itself. Whenever we use an app, platform, smartphone, or computer, we have no choice but to follow the strict rules that are coded into these technologies. Some rules are commonplace, like the rule that you cannot access the system without the correct password. Hence, the young man who lost more than $200 million because he couldn't remember the password to his virtual currency wallet. Other rules are more controversial. In late 2020, one social media platform made it impossible for users to share a controversial article containing allegations of corruption about a public figure's son, on the basis that it violated the platform's rules against sharing hacked material. As more and more of our actions, interactions, and transactions are mediated through digital technology, those who write code increasingly write the rules by which the rest of us live. Software engineers are becoming social engineers. Exercise 4. It wasn't really until the late 70s and early 80s that the concept of brands began to extend into all areas of business. As entities, we privatized, markets opened up, and competition became fiercer, so the need to differentiate your business became greater. Utilities, telecoms providers, banks, insurance companies, and airlines were all now enthusiastically embracing the power of branding. As brand owners fought for space in your mind, advertising became incredibly influential. The focus was on imbuing products and services with meaning so that you as the customer could surround yourself with the brands that best represented you, the very notion of shopping as a form of personal expression. Even businesses serving other businesses began to realize that having a brand was an important business support. Brands were now seen as more than just a logo or a tagline. They were seen as opportunities to create meaning. Exercise 5. There are many ordinary daily life situations, like the following example. A straight stick put in water looks bent, yet we do not believe it has become bent just because it was immersed in water, which is an easily penetrable liquid. Railroad tracks seem to converge in the distance, and yet when we walk to the spot where they apparently merged, we find them to be parallel. The wheels of automobiles seen on television seem to be going backward when the automobile is seen to be moving forward. Yet this is impossible. Such examples of distorted perception could be multiplied endlessly. Each of these sense phenomena is thus misleading in some way. If human beings were to accept the world as being exactly how it looks, they would be deceived as to how things really are. They would think the stick in water really to be bent, the writing on pages really to be reversed, and the wheels really to be going backward. Exercise 6. According to an ancient Greek proverb, a society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit. Likewise, an academic culture grows great when senior scholars perform acts of generosity for junior academics who may never know their names. Literary scholar and poet Leslie Wheeler remains endlessly grateful to the two anonymous readers whose thoughtful responses to her first book manuscript set her on the path to becoming a successful scholar. They told me bluntly what was wrong with the book, but they also found the time to praise it, and that was enough encouragement. Having benefited from the welcoming shelter of shade trees planted by others, Wheeler has little patience for cranky referees who poison the air with mean-spirited reviews. She takes care to ensure that her own feedback to colleagues and students is always gracious and constructive. The consciousness and generosity that I've seen directed at my work is something that I want to pay back. Exercise 7. Working in small groups may foster the creativity of students, but just putting students together to work in small groups does not mean that creativity will automatically flourish. As with other aspects of productive teamwork, this process requires learning. According to Meisner, a notable researcher in educational psychology, to further creative thinking in mathematics education, we need to further both individual and social abilities. Students need to learn how to avoid the negative factors that affect creativity. Cognitive interference, which includes production blocking, task-irrelevant behavior, and cognitive overload, and social inhibition, which includes social anxiety, free riding, and illusion of productivity. They also need to learn to recognize factors that can strengthen the potential of groups to generate ideas. For example, social stimulation, which includes both increased individual accountability and the development of shared standards for team performance, and cognitive stimulation, which includes stimulation of association, attention to others' contributions, and opportunities to incubate ideas. Exercise 8. Although it has been demonstrated that spaced learning sessions are usually more effective than massed learning sessions, in real-life settings, this advantage may sometimes be compromised by practical considerations. For example, there are some occasions when we only have a limited period of time available for study. For example, when we have only 1 hour left to revise before an exam. In such cases, it may be better to use the entire period rather than to take breaks, which will waste some of our available time. Again, a very busy person might have difficulty fitting a large number of separate learning sessions into their daily schedule. A further problem is that spaced learning obviously requires more time overall, for example, total time including rest breaks, than massed learning, and therefore may not represent the most efficient use of that time unless the rest breaks can be used for something worthwhile. Because spaced learning can create practical problems of this kind, there is no clear agreement about its value in a real-life learning setting, such as a school classroom. Exercise 9. In recent years, more H2O has been flowing from low-value crops, cotton and alfalfa, to high-value ones, nuts and berries. Ailing farms are selling their water rights to productive industry and rapidly growing cities. Food grown in wet, green climates, the northeastern United States, Brazil, is increasingly being exported to dry, brown ones, Arizona, India, allowing their water to be conserved for drinking supplies, for maintaining aquifer levels, or for other high-priority uses. Yet, people have tended to dance around the question of pricing water in a way that reflects scarcity. Because water is an essential resource, it has no market value, as, say, oil does. But with no price incentive to use it efficiently, people often waste water by using vast quantities for energy and mineral projects and polluting it. In many places, water is free, or priced so low that the revenue it generates is not enough to maintain or upgrade reservoirs, distribution pipes, and treatment plants. While citizens have good reason to be cautious of water privatizers, cheap water invites waste. Exercise 10. At their most basic level, monsters represent fears held by society, fears associated with dangers perceived in the surrounding world. These fears have a powerful evolutionary history by encouraging people to flee instead of fighting suicidal battles. When ancient hunters encountered a saber-toothed tiger by accident, they ran. When the human ancestor Homo erectus caught angry cave bears by surprise, it ran. When chimpanzees and bonobos, the nearest genetic relatives to modern humans, encounter large predators in the wild, they run. While Hollywood heroes have made running away distinctly unpopular on the silver screen, every single actor who has ever portrayed a hero stood his or her ground against some abominable terror comes from a long genetic lineage of cowards who fled in the face of danger. That is why they are here to act today. If their ancestors had fought against monsters far more powerful than themselves, as Hollywood heroes do all the time, their lineage would have been destroyed by predators long ago. Fear, in short, keeps people alive. Exercise 11. In the 1950s, hardly anyone was interested in yeast. To most, it didn't seem we could learn much about our complex selves by studying a tiny fungus. It was a struggle to convince the scientific community that yeast could be useful for something more than baking bread, brewing beer, and venting wine. What Mortimer and Johnson recognized, and what many others began to realize in the years to come, was that those tiny yeast cells are not so different from ourselves. For their size, their genetic and biochemical makeup is extraordinarily complex, making them an exceptionally good model for understanding the biological processes that sustain life and control lifespans in large complex organisms such as ourselves. If you are doubtful that a yeast cell can tell us anything about cancer, Alzheimer's disease, rare diseases, or aging, consider that there have been 5 Nobel Prizes in physiology or medicine awarded for genetic studies in yeast, including the 2009 prize for discovering how cells counteract telomere shortening, one of the characteristics of aging. Exercise 12. Rules govern our daily lives. Some of these rules are explicit, imposed by government. Obey the speed limit. No parking. April 15 is tax day. But most are informal, often unspoken cultural norms, rules of politeness, rules of conduct in the business world, rules of interaction between people. Most are commonly understood traditions that have built up over time, habits so ordinary that we usually don't even think about them. Unfortunately, not all such involuntary habits and subconscious conventions are positive or productive. American business and political communication is rife with bad habits and unhelpful tendencies that can do serious damage to the companies and causes they seek to promote. Just as in every other field, there are rules to good, effective communication. They may not be as inflexible and absolute as the rules against speeding or avoiding your taxes, but they're just as important if you wish to arrive safely at your destination with money in your pocket.